Just because the month of February is over does not mean that Black history is. And for that reason, I have invited someone who is making history in her district, in this country, and by just being herself. Ardelia Holmes is the candidate for the 11th congressional district and someone that I admire a lot because I have been fighting my congressperson for years for her wrongdoing and the amount of money that she's taking from Israel lobbyists and how she defends Israeli forces before America because she puts Israel before America. And I decided that I'm not dealing with that any longer. So for that reason, Politico has taken the liberty of endorsing Ardelia Holmes, but also have her on this podcast. Thank you so much for being here and welcome, Ardelia. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about you? What got you, first of all, what got you to run for office? But also tell me a little bit about like who you are and, what is Ardelia Holmes, outside of like the political arenas and stuff?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that was a loaded question, but outside of the political arena, I'm a mother. I'm a divorced mother of 4 children, all school age. My oldest is a senior. My youngest is in 2nd grade. I'm a teacher. I am a cool person, literally born and raised here. I'm an entrepreneur. A lot of people know me from a cafe that we opened back during the pandemic. We opened a cafe in Beechwood Mall. Originally, it started as something that I wanted to do for my 12 going on 13-year-old daughter during that time. And we ended up opening up what we would call Ohio's first Instagram cafe right in Beechwood Mall in the old Godiva. And then we used that to extend the offer to teach other little girls about financial literacy. So this is a kind of like who I am. I naturally kind of shifted into politics. That happened because I've spent a lot of time fighting for equity in education, most notably in Shaker Heights. If you were to Google me, you will see that there was some litigation that was filed and things like that. I am a big proponent about equal rights, equity in education. I really just genuinely care for my community. As a teacher, I care for the kids that are coming up after us. That's really my whole spiel. I think I'm just a cool girl. Like I said, born and raised here. The part that I don't say out loud, but I think is important to know. I was late diagnosed neurodivergent. And so I am like relentless sometimes in my pursuit for justice, which is insane. And so when I notice these things, I have to get involved. I don't like to let things sit. I don't like to let things be. The state of our community, specifically this district, really has bothered me for a long time. It took me a while to find that voice and feel comfortable to get to this place, but I think it was always in a trajectory.
Yeah, and I think I have seen that from you. I took the time to, Google a little bit and like look at your campaign and outside of your campaign, and I've seen it that you are a freedom fighter. You care for your community, and that's myself what I look for someone
Yes.
who's running for like, for Congress. And I look for someone who like believes in a lot of the stuff that I believe, but also it's willing to, say, hey, I am okay to defeat the establishment. I am okay to walk away from it if I have to, to do
Yes.
better. And I noticed that from you. Um, and not just that, you are running for like our Congress, which is,
Yes.
we want to say the presidential is the highest office, whatever. Everybody can say that.
It's
But
up there.
but to me, Congress is like the highest one because without Congress, the president is kind of like literally pretty much nobody. He has to do a lot. Without Congress, he's a dictator. And even though we have a Congress, we're seeing where we are standing today in the U.S. Right. So with that said, like what inspired you? You shared like you share your background and everything. What inspired you directly to run for this specific office?
Yes, a lot of people are like, wait, you ran for school board and then you pivoted to Congress. I was always planning to run this race. It was a bit of back and forth between myself. I'm glad for the school board race. It definitely was a great introduction into politics. I would have had no clue. And I think that's another thing. I don't know if we would call it civilian, but as a constituent, we are really not privy to this process. This is a wild process. And so I'm glad for that. But the reason why I decided to go straight for Congress is because I feel like our district is in need of dire change. Yes, I could work my way up like everybody else, but one, I'm qualified. Two, I'm ready to do the work. And three, again, the way that I think, I'm a systems thinker, I'm a strategist. I want to go and make the most impact. I am not afraid to challenge the establishment. I hate to be anti-establishment in this moment, but that's kind of where I lean at. You're going to have to, well, hopefully with canvassing and all of that, we get out and get the word out, but you're not going to see me chummy chum because there's no loyalty to an establishment when my people are hurting, period.
Exactly, and I love that. That's one of the things that, like, as I said, when I was reading about you and I was going through your history, I'm like, this is what we need because
Yes.
like our people are oppressed, and like you yourself, Black women are oppressed throughout history, and the current person, actually, the current person in office, which I mentioned her previous times. I will not mention her name to like not get do not take the attention away from you, but
Mhm.
I'll let people do what they please with that information. We have seen how she literally has become an oppressor to the people of the United States, like how she has become an oppressor to the people of Ohio, and how many Ohioans, like not even just Ohioans, like Middle Eastern folks, like people,
Yes.
Latinos, are seeing her and they're like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? What is going on in your district? And why are you like spending so much time in Washington, instead of like with the people? Listen to your district. You have an office, sure, we get it. But it seems like a lot of that time is spent in an office. Like they didn't show up to the State of the Union. While not showing up at the State of the Union, decided to literally like post about it hours later. And it's like, you still watched it. So what would happen? Like how much time was wasted
Mhm.
there where you could have been there actually, advocating with the other Democrats who were actually fighting
Yes.
against this like current regime. So, with that little background, I guess as a Black woman yourself, as someone who has seen, the oppressive state that we are in the federal government, especially, like Black and brown people, how much we're affected, immigrants, Middle Eastern folks, etc. How do you plan to avoid making the mistakes that our current elected congressperson has been making once elected?
So one of the first things is that honestly, as a Black woman, going against the Black woman, I always want to have a Black woman's back. And so for me, I'm not going to turn this into 2024. Was it 2024, 2021? I'm not going to do that part. But the facts are the facts, right? And so when it comes to our community, first of all, this is an amazing and diverse community, okay? I've been embraced by everyone. We stick together out here. We do our best to stick together for the most part. And there are those voices when someone's not doing the part who's willing to stand up and say so. But I think why I'm not even try not to, why I'm not going to fall into those traps is because I don't know anybody anything. I will be very honest with you. We've raised about $150 so far. I haven't been out doing the ask for donations, but I will tell you now, I have decided to run for the most unendorsed, I'm sorry, for the most part. I don't want any donations tied to me that would sway my vote. And so when we talk about our Middle Eastern community and the things that are going on in Iran, well, we know that this person is one of the top recipients of funds that fund and demand a vote for things that are against, I'm just going to say it, genocidal, the things that are going on in the Middle East, right? And so that's how you fall into that trap. Ever want to believe that this is an inherently bad person, or, the goal was to come in here and to turn a blind eye to the community, if that's how some of the constituents have flat out voiced that to me. So you are not wrong, Juan. That is the feeling. But I think when we start to get to a place, and Cleveland is notorious for this, when we put a title next to our name, we decide, right? We kind of close our eyes to what's going on. When I shot the video I shot the other day in East Cleveland. Now, mind you, I've also done gig work. I will never tell you a lie. So I've been in every predicament as someone as our community. I've been up here, I've been in the middle, and I have been down low. Okay. It has gotten really rough for my family and I at times. And so I've spent lots of time in East Cleveland, whether that was door dashing and delivering groceries, whether that was going out to help, whether that was visiting a friend. I've been in East Cleveland. But when I went to shoot the video the other day and I was like looking for a place to film, and I just had to stop. and like be in the area. And there was one area in specific. There was like the street was blocked off and there were abandoned buildings, but there were people back there. And that's something when you're just driving by, you might not realize. And it really brought it home. Like we've forgotten. We have like sometimes a crabs in a bucket or barrel mentality, and we kind of turn our back on the things that are happening right here in our neighborhood. Shaw is an amazing school, amazing program, amazing students, and that's what they're living through. I can't go to Washington D.C. and worry about funding Israel when my people are suffering right here. That's just something I can't do. So that won't happen because, like I said, I'm not willing. If it means no money and that means I have to go out here and knock on almost 800,000 doors myself just to get people to see me, that's what I'm willing to do instead of taking that money.
Yeah, absolutely. And that in itself, that message is powerful. And I hope people, when people are listening to this, and especially like our Ohioan listeners, they can listen and actually understand the difference, between you and the other person who's currently elected and does not seem to care much about, their town and their city. I remember last time we had the No Kings event, and literally they come in, security left and right. And I'm like, you're an elected official. I understand to an extent to have some security with you, but we couldn't even handshake you without like getting one of the security people in front of me. And I can imagine for neighborhoods like East Cleveland who are literally like struggling and suffering so much, due to the local politics and the corruption. I can
Mhm.
imagine how someone comes with like 5, 7 bodyguards, how the people in there are gonna feel. Like how
Yeah.
not welcome in their own town, in their own city. Like I see it, I understand it because I've seen it and I understand it myself, and it's like, wow. Like we didn't elect you to kick us out on the country. We elected to get you through, and some,
You are one of us. You are one of us. Yes.
exactly, like, and it's sad because the reality is that it doesn't show that this individual actually understands where they came from, and it's like, you are just like us, just because you're up there doesn't mean that, like, you are different or, like, just there to, like, take us. Like, no, like, we are the same, and we are supposed to be fighting for each other. And that's like one of my biggest things. Like for example, with her, and I wanted to, bring this part up. It's one of my questions. And I think I heard a little bit of this on you, and I read it on your campaign. But one of the things, she refuses to use the term abortion. I've heard it many of times. It's a refusal. It's always reproductive rights or like women's rights. I'm gonna be a little, I guess, blunt, straightforward to you. In office over there, what are your plans to support like women that are like need or like cannot have an abortion, especially in Ohio where we're like literally struggling with federal government pushing to the
Mhm.
state? What are your plans to like vote on things like that?
I absolutely believe that's, first of all, that's your personal life, right? So I think we're at a place in politics where we got identity politics and people are putting their beliefs over what is the law. That's your business. And I don't know any other way to say it. It's your business. The hard stop for me though is to consider life. So if you are, I don't know, and I highly doubt this would ever happen. And so I think this is one of those points, but you just have to throw it out there as a disclaimer, right? I don't see this happening as often as we try to use it as a scare point. But of course, if you're 8 months and you're safe and that baby is safe, no, I would not want you to do something like that. But I don't. Again, I think that is a tactic that's being used to push it as a someone's moral compass instead of what is legal. I don't believe people are running out to do that all day. So no, that's your life. IVF, abortion care, all of that. That is your right. I'm a woman. That's your right. I might not be running out to do it myself. Actually, I'm not having any more kids. I've had enough for all of us, but that's our right as women. And why would we allow someone to take it away? And it's so complicated as well as a woman. It's not just you're getting an abortion. Like that term is a broad term. That term sometimes is life saving. Like that, you know what I'm saying? It encompasses so many things. And I think that's why it's important to have women who care. And speaking of, with that, right alongside it, I'm really focused on doing something for our infant mortality and our Black maternal uh, mortality rates because we have some of the highest in this district as well. So you can focus on both. These are lives. These are people, these are things. And I think we have to take out how we personally feel. You don't know sometimes until you're in someone else's shoes. And We're not going to be in each other's shoes all the time, but we have to take our personal beliefs out of what is right and what is fair, and also things we don't understand. And I am sure there are a lot of people who are voting against abortion rights who do not realize how complex that term is. That term is the umbrella for a lot of life saving things.
No, yeah, absolutely. I did myself a couple days ago. It was last Thursday. We're recording this on 3/11. I was last Thursday, and I went to this scenario where I was supposed to be a person looking for I had a situation, and I traveled from Florida, which abortion is illegal, to Ohio to get
Mhm.
abortion care. Life was at risk. Life was at risk. I was completely I was 100% homeless in Florida. I didn't have the needs. So when they show us you come to Ohio with $100.
Mhm.
And, people just think that you walk into any Planned Parenthood, and an abortion is there for you, you're just waiting with, tweezers and stuff, when I was doing that scenario, I learned how hard it is to just even navigate that system,
It is
and
very difficult.
I'm a
And
man.
it's a system, and it's also a system, and I will be very candid with you. This is very candid, but this is a look into who I am and where I'm coming from. I had my first abortion, I think I was 15 or 16 years old. Yes. That's it. I had one at that young of an age, and it was the so I can speak to the process. It was a difficult time. There were some other factors factored in. We talk about, harassment, sexual assault. We talk about things like there were other factors that led to having to make a decision like that for my mom at that age. But anyway, I landed up in a Planned Parenthood, and the goal is always to preserve life, right? That is the goal. So it's not like there's some person on the other side just willy nilly and happy to do something. Like, you go through counseling, you go through a process, you talk through it. You don't walk in and come out that way. It's a multi-day, sometimes multi-week process. It is something that is thought through. It is done with care. It is done with dignity. A lot of abortions are not even happening in those centers. Sometimes they're happening in hospitals because, again, this is an umbrella term, and sometimes these are serious life or death situations. The next abortion I had was as a married woman, and I was suffering an ectopic pregnancy. That DNC is also an abortion, right? But that was to save my life.
Exactly, and that's one of the actually the whole thing. My character, the character I was given that day, the persona was literally going through the same thing.
Yeah.
It was her life, and it's so wow to see how everything was going through, and I'm like, whoa, I myself thought you walk into a Planned Parenthood and it was so easy. I was like, okay, this must be the easiest process, because everybody's always talking about it, but I never thought of it being internal in the process. I'm like, whoa, holy crap! I'm literally how
Mhm.
hard it is. And when they're people are screaming, it's so easy. Yeah, no, it ain't that easy. No, I literally went through it. And I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that was
And I appreciate you for doing that to see. I think we are in a time where we use, again, our moral compass, and I hate to use the word propaganda, but we use these things to scare people into feeling something. So when you don't have experience with something, and I tell it to you, and I'm your elected official, I'm your government, you're supposed to be able to trust me, and I tell you something horrible, it probably comes off as a fact, right? We are just now getting to a place where we are fact checking people all the time, because for a long time we took that to be the truth. You have our best interests at hand. And now we are seeing that some of the things that we've thought to be true or thought to be one way are just not. They are really just thought to sway your vote.
Yeah, and I will say, one of the things, as we're talking, about the truth or not, I was looking at some from Obama and McCain's election, and I'm looking at McClain, I think, and I'm looking for their election, and I'm looking at these videos, compared to 2016 and after, they were speaking the truth. I did some fact checking. I was, what, I'm gonna fact check this two men because nobody was doing it back then. I was like, they're speaking the truth, and now, now as you said, we're fact checking everything. I mean, literally, people are online fact checking the State of the Union. People are fact checking
Yes.
presidential speeches where this person who got elected is supposed to be throwing gas at everybody, but he's just burning us. And it's like, wow, how do we move from that? And one of the biggest things that we've seen, we have seen this is the cost of living and inflation, which I also I'm gonna go into that one because I also know one of your platform issues that I was reading, and literally he says that he's gonna do better, right? With the inflation is down, and we're doing so much better. And every single time, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking literally at at his own government's websites and seeing the inflation rates, and we're not getting any better. Like we are literally, we're still struggling and suffering, and part of it is endless wars. Like we're going overseas and putting our tax dollars towards those wars, and now it's like, what happened here in the motherland? Like what is happening to us, our people? How is someone struggling so much when they're making 50, 60, 70,000 a year and they're still struggling? That
Yes.
is huge. And so I don't know if you want to like touch a little bit on that, like the cost of living, and what are your plans when you're like up there in the beautiful DC?
Yes, one of my first things to do is I'm gonna try to use that federal push to go ahead and get some economic relief to the people in Ohio 11. I don't have the specifics of it worked out, but it will not be the worst thing to do. I think that's the first thing to do. We've been hit extremely hard. First of all, in this district, our median income is only $56,000. If anything, I'm not worried about this being unjustifiable. I think this is very much so justifiable. Also, too, something people may not know is that each year, your congresswoman, I'm just going to speak it into existence, your congresswoman is able to put together, it was 15 projects or ways to spend money or packages. Now it's 20. And so, through whichever way I need to do, that would be one of the first things on my agenda is to deliver some economic relief directly in our pockets. The second thing is to go ahead and get the federal regulations together for the energy companies. Right now we have these data centers popping up left and right in Ohio. And I think it was Houston just talked about, he just signed off on another one. And I think it was going to create, what, 10 new jobs?
Yeah, and we're
Something.
literally, yeah, and there's a law that just passed at the local level, and I won't get too
Yes.
much into data centers, but literally, and we have seen how those are hiring our power bills. Our
Yes.
electric bills are going so much
Yes.
higher in the cities. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like Cleveland already has their like, as a
We've been
Cleveland, there's not
carrying
like,
it for 2 years. We've been carrying a 23% hike for almost 2 years now.
and
Yes.
it's unnecessary. That's the true reality. Like a lot of this like AI creations are just. And then mostly what is used to is just data centers are for AI, and like these AI creations are not really, what we need. And
Mhm.
I produce a podcast called Green Arenas where like they talk more into the data center stuff with the Alliance for the Great Lakes. And I'll let everybody, if they want to like listen to that, they can go ahead. I wanted to that like, how we are affected financially. And you brought a good point, because even by bringing quote unquote jobs, you're also still financially affecting a larger portion of the community.
Yes, yes, it is difficult. So one of the things that was said at the State of the Union by Trump, which, and please don't beat me because I thought it was a great idea. It was actually something that was in my platform before that day, but he was saying they need to pay 100% of their electricity costs, and they also need to get their own data grids. And I'm 100%, that is something that I will be pushing for immediately to make sure that we take that burden off of Northeast Ohio immediately.
Yeah, because it's huge, like, and that brings into like what's going on, because people that are in poverty move into criminality. Like they have to do something that is criminal to gain that money. It's the
Mhm.
easiest way out. And if you need right now $700 and you see someone with a purse with $700, or you have to go through the red lining of getting a job, you're probably gonna go for that purse. And that's like, the biggest like thing, how like, and poverty creates crime, because
Mhm.
people see it, and they see that as the only exit. Which also brings me to a lot of another platform point that you had, and it's like criminal justice reform. Our criminal
Yes.
system, when people get in, it's a horrible system to go through. Especially in Ohio, we have seen how like our jail system like fails our people. How children are being failed by, like, literally when their parents are doing things and they shouldn't. Children are being failed by the system here in Ohio. And not to get too graphic, but you saw the two little girls. I'm assuming
Yes.
everybody has, who were like literally slaughtered by their own mother, and that in itself, like, the justice system failed them as they
Mhm.
felt like Ohio itself. And how can we change that? What are your plans, to like change that, not only at the local but at the federal level itself?
Yes, at the federal level. So the first thing that I talk about on my platform is education as infrastructure. Really brings everything back and ties it into it. So if we start at the beginning with what's going on in public education, first of all, we're not funding it enough. We're sending vouchers here and there. So Congress does control that purse. And so I am all for more federal funding for our public schools. So that's number one, how we keep our kids out of trouble. Pumping more money into public schools is so necessary. I'm currently working with someone out of Slavic Village to try to bring a program to Cuyahoga County called N68 or Stop 68. I might be saying it wrong, but either way, this program is about making sure the kids are fed when they are home on the weekends. Because I've seen it personally as a teacher. Everybody doesn't have what they need, right? And so by doing that, I also, with that, would want to increase the transparency, and I would want states to give more transparent auditing. That really does something for property taxes. We'll circle back around to that. But if we start right there, we'd be able to put more mental health services in place in our public schools. I believe that mental health services should be in any federally funded anything. I don't, if that's HUD housing, if that's Veterans Affairs, if that's at school, anything that's being funded by the federal government, mental health resources need to be a priority in that space. So that will allow us, that's the first thing, it would allow us to give more care to the students and also to provide more care to the families. Lots of districts have groups that go out and try to provide families with things. We had apartments that were shut down right here. They are in Cleveland, but on the Shaker Heights border, we're dealing with that. That's a whole nother thing with housing stability and out of town landlords. But the Shaker schools were able to come in, work with resources in the community to find housing for people. So there are schools that need that extra funding to make sure that we're helping in that way. And then that just kind of trickles down from there into my economic stability platform. Like you said, people will say, well, go get a welfare check. First of all, red tape. It's crazy. It's hard to get it. I know for a fact, okay? Hard to
I
get
can
it.
attest I can attest to that too. Like I am on a $50,000 a year salary, working
Mhm,
for the government, and I have a family of like 3. I have my
mhm.
one child, my wife and I. We're a family of 3, and they expect us to be making 10 to 24,000 a year too. And I'm like, who
Yes,
survives with 10 to
yes,
24, you know? And it's like,
yes,
when you're out there, a lot of people start screaming at you, like when you're protesting, and they go like, "Oh, you're welfare queen, like you're getting paid to do." I'm
mhm.
like, please tell me, when am I getting paid to do this? Because I would love to get paid to do this, because the government doesn't give me anything.
It's
Last year I was on.
$3 for 64 hours when you put the 130-hour work requirement, you make it $3 an hour?
Yeah, exactly. I was literally like unemployed last year for I believe 3 months, and unemployment was a nightmare to even get through. And I got unemployment by the end of it, by the end of
Yeah,
my unemployment time, and it's like,
yeah,
that could have, if I would have got this from the beginning, I would have been struggling where, like, we're playing catching up still because of that situation, and it's hard, and many
it
of us
is.
just we have learned how to deal and how to live with it, that we're just, "Okay, we're gonna live with it, we're gonna run with it." But we're seeing how awful, and, how much the struggle of the community, because there's someone who's always, like, in a worse situation than us, and we're
Yes.
seeing how it's going, and we're like, well, like, why isn't the government helping us? And we're seeing the reality.
And they can federally. So we have the work requirements. The work requirements were already in place. I know for the TANF program, I think it's new for them to be in place for SNAP. But okay, so we got the work requirements. I would love to tell you guys what the work requirements are. So the work requirements currently are like customer service entry level at like a pharmacy or drugstore, earning a Google Cloud certificate. They are just things, right? And I'm saying, can we work with the states to make sure that these programs are giving people jobs or trainings that they need? Again, federally funded, right? That can actually get them off of nobody wants to be there. It's not, people are making a thing, and we've been coerced again to believe that we're paying taxes and we are funding mansions and Rolls Royces, and we're not. It's not. It's not giving all that they are trying to tell you that it's giving. People are still barely able to survive. And so these things do, that is what happens. That's why you see crime in the streets. It's the lack of all of it all together, right? So if we right here, we should be having more manufacturing jobs opening. We should be going ahead and using the structure that we have. We should be giving money to small companies, these small manufacturing companies. We should be getting these buildings back in operation so that we can start sending people to work for real money so we can combat this bad and terrible economy.
No, exactly, and I think I mentioned this. I had another, I believe, another show that I was talking to one of my co-hosts on, and we were talking about what we think the government should subsidize for people. And
Mhm.
one of the things we were like, housing should be fully subsidized. Like nobody should fear not having housing. The same thing, like with like things such as food. Like there should be always a means and ways for people to get food. Even if the government is not giving you a check, there should be
Mhm.
something.
Yes.
And the other part is healthcare. Like healthcare, those three
Oh,
things should be fully subsidized. And then everything else we can, if we had those three things, because those are like the biggest things in our lives and take like the most
yes.
money out of us: housing, food, and healthcare. If those three things were subsidized, every American will be living their best life. They will be literally like working and happily working. People will be able to work happily because
Mhm.
they know then everything else that they need they can afford. Their Disney Plus subscription, they can go and work and afford like whatever much it is, and they can afford that TV to watch Disney Plus when they get home from work. They can afford their gas for their car. They can afford a better car. They don't have to
Yes.
walk or so it's like, it's definitely, if those things were definitely subsidized, there's so much more that a government can be doing and can do. And
Yes.
when you say things like this, people just look at us like that's a socialist ideology, and it's like no, it's this ideology of people actually having true like
Yes.
care for like by the government. The government is swore and they were here to take care of us, and take care of people, and that's that's like my one vision. Eventually,
Mhm.
maybe one day if I get into the government myself, I can make that change. But if not, I know there's people like you, out here who are willing to make that
Oh,
change.
yeah.
That's the good part.
I worked in a hospital years ago, and I remember there was a older couple that came in, and she was actually in going through a stroke. And we were like, "Why didn't you call 911?" And her husband's like, "Oh, well, we couldn't afford to pay for the ambulance." And I'm like, "Okay." Like, I've known for years, and that was over a decade ago. I've known for years that universal healthcare is necessary.
And we are also, and you will be invited to this one. We're doing a political live, another
Mhm.
episode of the live streams that we've been doing, and that one is on healthcare for all and the
Yes.
necessity of it. And I think, and I think with that part, America needs it so much. And I know that if like someone brings it into Ohio, every other
Mhm.
state will slowly see how functional it is, and they will bring it to
Yes.
their states.
Yes.
Like, and the biggest issue, because right now we're seeing how big pharmacy companies are literally like, there's so much money that they're spending, like, in making ads against this. There's so much money they're putting to literally make universal healthcare look like it's an evil. But they're
Mhm.
spending so little into those medications they're getting, but you're spending so much more into those medications. It's
Yes.
like it's their capitalistic way, which is destroying, like, the way that people healthcare functions.
Yes. 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 I think so it's a complex situation, and this is my brain, my logical brain. My logical brain has gone in and out and all through a way, and I've also studied other countries from Canada to France, Germany, and Japan who also have universal health care models. And to try to see, like, how does it work? Which way works best? Which way could work and really, maintain the American edge. And so I know, and I'm dedicated to getting in. And I want to say grassroots across the country, isn't every congressional seat up right now? There are people coming, and I know it's almost like we're a coalition because we are all tight on this one thing for sure. We want healthcare for all.
Yeah, and that's what I'm like, and I know for a fact, if I'm 100% correct, I remember seeing in your platform at one point, and that was like part of,
Yes,
your that
yes.
was like part of what you wanted. So, and I wanted to, I want to make sure and also go over that part because like when we have platforms this good,
Mhm.
people need to see what's going on. People like
Yes,
your platform is literally it's giving people the power. It's
yes,
giving people the opportunity to actually be someone in not only their local and, like, state politics, but now in their federal politics too.
yes,
And
yes.
it's opening that door to where, like, the opposition, like, doesn't have that door open, and we see it for years. And again, I know, like, I'm, like, here, like, trashing on the opposition, but, like, I have had my experience, with the opposition literally been trying to get for, I don't know, like, the past 6, 7 months, maybe, like, over a year now, actually, to get a meeting to talk about, healthcare for all, and we haven't even gotten that far. So
Mhm.
I myself understand that there's so much more that needs to be done, and
And
we
there's
can
so much more that can be done, and that's what I I'm not coming into this because I want to be the next congressperson or the it girl. No, when I tell you, if you ask me a question, Juan, and I don't know, I go write it down. And then I'm all through the Constitution. I'm all on the internet. I'm researching. I'm sorting it out in my brain. I'm strategizing. There's so much more that can be done that has not been done. And that's the place where I plan to come in. My mind, I know what's going on here. I'm not above it. I'm living right inside of it. So that is my first mind and my first thought, but I also understand it at the federal level as well.
Exactly, and that's, like, the biggest part, like, understanding federal politics, because a lot of us do understand to an extent the federal
Mhm.
politics, but it's, like, understanding 100% of what needs to be done and how things can go. Because
Yes.
we mentioned earlier, like, there's red tape in every system, but the
Mhm.
federal government has the largest red tape than there is, like and they will make sure, like, if they don't want you, they'll make sure for you not to get elected, and there's, like, big donors that will make sure of that too, and that's
Yes.
where, like,
I'm
and
excited for that.
that's when we come in. People like you who are grassroots, that's when people like you come in too, and we're, like, fighting for sure.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and we have a fight. We have less than 2 months and we have a fight. This is rough, but I'm up for it and everything I've said is what it benefits me. It benefits you. It benefits the children that I teach. There's I believe in it. I stand on it 100%. I want this to be it. Now is the time, but I promise if it's not it, I don't go away. We'll be campaigning for 2 years.
Absolutely, I love that, and I wanted to, with that, I want to ask you, what is something that you wanna tell your voters out there and the people that cannot even vote for you, what is something they can do to help you out too?
My gosh, this is one of my favorite questions. The first thing you can do is if you see my platform, you can share my website. If you see me, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Threads. Please reshare. That is the number one thing you can do. Visibility is going to be really rough. And like I said, I'm not accepting any donations from any corporations. So the donations that I do get and I am asking for are coming from our constituents. So 5, 10, 15, however much you feel comfortable with, it's cool if you can give it. But if you can't, it is free to hit share. It's free to repost. It's free to tell a friend. If you got time, come out. Please help us volunteer and walk. Once donations start coming in, maybe we can do more I know people don't like to do stuff for free no more, and I understand it because life is hard. But once donations come in, we can definitely make arrangements. But in the meantime, coming out, helping us spread out literature, visibility is the biggest thing. People do not know. I think last primary, our current representative ran uncontested. So people don't even know that there are options. And I am here.
Absolutely. So I appreciate you joining us. For everybody listening at home, I want to say just check the show notes where you'll be able to find more up on Ardelia, like on her campaign, all the policies and links will be there to everything. And the best part is that if you're in the Cleveland area or you just want to show up, we are soon planning to do a canvassing day for Ardelia, and that will be also posted on the Instagram and Facebook for Politico, so you'll be able to see that so we can make sure that she's selected because this is not just this is not only an episode of someone that we're just bringing talk politics with. Now this is an episode of someone that I wanted to bring into this podcast because we know that there's a better option. We know that there's better for our Congress. I don't think we have ever done this through this platform, but it's someone that we ourselves endorse. Like, you're probably the first candidate we have ever said we endorse publicly.
Oh my gosh,
But
thank you.
this is like someone like you are someone that we want to see in office and someone, and we have had many of those candidates, but you are someone that we like are taking that step because we can see the change and you are that change that our city needs and our state
Thank
and our
you.
freaking federal government itself.
Yes. Oh, yes. I'm a fighter. Look me up and what I be doing in Shaker Heights. No, but I am a fighter, and I really just believe in our community, and by any means necessary, I'm going to keep fighting for us.
Thank you so much. And then again, once again, I appreciate you joining us. And for those listening at home, again, check the show notes to find more and how to support Ardelia too.
Thank you. Thank you, Juan, for having me.
Thanks so much for listening. If you are enjoying Politico, make sure to listen and follow on all podcasting platforms. If you are interested in learning more about the topic that we spoke today, follow the show notes at www.politicopod.com. Politico is an Inquisitor Media original production hosted by me, Juan Collado Díaz. If you want to learn more about the work we do on our advocacy work, make sure to follow or visit Politico at www.politicopod.com.